Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are going to uncover the secrets of an ancient figure whose inventions literally govern the modern world you and I are living in right now. I mean, we're talking about a truly fascinating story, full of mythology, administration, and, yeah, actual magic.
So, let's dive right into this. Have you ever actually stopped to wonder who first invented the calendar? Or, the mathematics we use to build our cities? Or even the alphabet you're reading right this second? Well, while modern historians have their timelines, the ancient Egyptians had a very specific, divine answer. The very tools you rely on every single day to communicate, measure time, and just understand the universe, they were all attributed to the subject of today's deep dive.
Section 1. Meet the Ibis God. Unpacking the avatars. All right, let's put on our museum curator hats for just a second. The ancient Egyptians used two incredibly bizarre physical forms to visually communicate some really complex ideas about this deity. On one hand, we've got a man with the head of a green ibis bird, and on the other, a dog-faced baboon named İNAL, who is the god of equilibrium. Now, these weren't just random animal pairings. They were highly practical metaphors representing the total precision of lunar cycles and cosmic balance. To understand exactly why they chose these forms, we have to look at his original Egyptian name. He was called Jehuti, which roughly translates to "he who is like the ibis." You see, the ancient Egyptians were incredibly observant people. They noticed that the long, curved beak of the ibis bird perfectly mirrored the shape of a crescent moon. And since this deity originally governed the moon, this bird became his defining symbol, directly linking his very form to the night sky. Section 2. The Ultimate Divine Inventor, Egypt's IT Guy.
Okay, so if the Egyptian pantheon was a massive, sprawling corporation, this deity was basically the administrative backbone holding the whole operation together. Let's start with how he supposedly invented our calendar. According to the Greek philosopher Plutarch, the original Egyptian calendar year was exactly 360 days long. But there was a massive cosmic glitch. The sky goddess Nut was sterile during these 360 days, completely unable to bear children. So the universe's timeline was fundamentally broken.
So the cosmic IT guy steps in to fix the glitch, and he does it in literally the most dramatic way possible. Our ibis-headed god played a high-stakes gambling game with the moon itself. He waged a bet, and he actually ended up winning a fraction of the moon's illumination, specifically 1/72nd of its light.
Now let's do the math on that mythological gamble. 1/72nd of 360 days gives us exactly 5. He won 5 extra days, and that brings the calendar to the 365 days we still use across the globe today. During these 5 crucial added days, the curse on Nut was finally lifted, which allowed for the birth of major Egyptian gods like Osiris, Set, and Isis. So he didn't just track time, you guys. He invented the extra time needed to birth civilization itself. How crazy is that?
But the crucial point here is that his resume absolutely didn't stop at just the calendar. The Egyptians regarded him as one, self-begotten and self-produced. He was credited as the author of literally every single branch of human and divine knowledge. We are talking hieroglyphs, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and even civilized government. He was the ultimate master of both physical science and moral law.
Section 3. Judge of the Underworld, the ultimate record keeper.
Now, as we transition to the afterlife, we find out that a top-tier administrator's job definitely does not end just because someone dies. Passing into the Egyptian afterlife required passing a strict, honestly terrifying divine audit. First, the deceased heart is weighed against the feather of Ma'at, which represents absolute truth. Right at the center of those scales sits Ani, remember the baboon avatar we talked about earlier? Ensuring uncompromising equilibrium. Finally, our ibis-headed administrator stands by with his reed pen, acting as a divine auditor, recording the final judgment to determine if your soul passes, or, well, if it gets eaten by a monster.
Because he controlled the scales of eternal life, and the very art of writing itself. Human scribes revered him above all others. Just listen to this quote from the Papyrus of Ani, which is a really famous copy of the Book of the Dead. "I am thy writing pallet, O Thoth. Let not evil happen unto me." Human scribes worshipped him so desperately that they literally identify themselves as his desk supplies, begging for his protection in the afterlife. Talk about job dedication.
Section 4. Evolution into Hermes Trismegistus.
A deity this incredibly useful and foundational doesn't just fade away when empires rise and fall, he gets rebranded.
When the Greeks came into contact with Egypt, they objectively noticed some massive overlapping attributes between their gods, things like magic, wisdom, writing, and the arbitration of godly disputes. So they just simply merged the Egyptian Thoth with their own messenger god Hermes, and later on the Romans would take this exact same blueprint and adapt it into their god Mercury.
This awesome cultural fusion led to a specific, totally legendary figure known as Hermes Trismegistus, which translates to thrice great. This Hellenistic combination was so impactful that the Greeks even renamed the deity's massive Egyptian cult center to Hermopolis, literally the city of Hermes. This combined figure then became the ultimate source of alchemy and magic, firmly cementing a legacy that would go on to dominate Western esoteric traditions for centuries.
But wait, the cultural blending gets even more surprising. Back in the 3rd or maybe 2nd century BC, a Jewish author named Artapanus of Alexandria actually euhemerized Thoth Hermes. That means he treated the myth as actual grounded human history. He claimed that this figure was actually the exact same historical person as Moses. Why? Well, because both figures were legendary lawbringers, authors of secret texts, and prime organizers of civilization. It's a wild connection, right?
Section 5. Thoth's enduring modern legacy.
Now, you might assume a god from an empire thousands of years old belongs strictly in dusty textbooks, but from Marvel Comics all the way to Aleister Crowley's tarot deck, the ibis god is still incredibly active in our modern cultural consciousness, and more importantly, we are literally still digging up his secrets right now. In January 2020, an amazing discovery was made at Tuna El Jebel in Egypt. An archaeological mission unearthed 20 sarcophagi, discovering the communal tombs of high priests dedicated entirely to Thoth. That included 5 perfectly preserved limestone coffins completely covered in his hieroglyphs.
Yet despite his monumental legacy, his greatest invention, writing itself, has honestly always had its critics. In his famous dialogue, the Phaedrus, the Greek philosopher Plato frames a fascinating philosophical debate. Thoth presents the invention of writing to the Egyptian king Thamus, proudly calling it a wonderful substitute for memory. But King Thamus pushes back. He argues it is merely a remedy for reminding, not remembering. Thamus warned that by writing things down, humanity would actually become lazy, gaining the appearance of wisdom without actually retaining any deep internal knowledge.
And that leaves us with a final, incredibly relevant question to ponder today. As we continuously outsource our own memories to smartphones, digital screens, and massive cloud servers, are we ultimately proving Plato right about the ibis god's greatest invention? Are we losing our ability to truly remember, settling instead for the mere illusion of wisdom? It's definitely something to think deeply about the next time you type out a quick note or search for a forgotten fact. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the knowledge around you.